Today we're going to be having a look at some different strength elements. These will be including half levers and Russians. We're going to be breaking them all the way down from the start to the end. Before we start any half lever or Russian work, we need to make sure that the gymnast is flexible enough in their hamstrings to hold their legs in that position when they try. So we can get them down on the floor in this crouch position with their hands flat on the floor. We can ask the gymnast to straighten their legs up and try and hold their pike fold with their legs completely straight and then come back down again. We do that one more time, just push up with their legs completely straight, knees locked, squeezing their quads, really stretching the back of their hamstrings. Another good exercise we can look at is getting the gymnast to hang on the bar, hook their feet around the bar, push their legs straight and straighten their knees, stretching the back of their hamstrings. So the gymnast is going to lift his feet up onto the bar, legs bent, push his knees completely straight, stretching down the back of his hamstrings, holding it, 1, 2, 3, back up. And again, straightening his legs all the way down, holding it, nice straight knees, 1, 2, 3. Once we're confident that the gymnast is flexible enough in their hamstrings, we can start look at working on their strength in their core to be able to lift their legs up and hold their half lever or their Russian lever. So one of the first things we can do is lay them down on the floor and hold onto an object like a bar, like TJ has here. From here, he's going to bend his knees up, doing his tucked leg lift and bringing his legs back down to the floor. We can get him to practice this a few times. Bend your legs up and all the way back down. Now to advance this and make this a little bit harder, we can ask the gymnast to keep his legs completely straight, lifting his toes all the way up towards his hands, straight legs, and bringing his legs all the way back down to the floor. We'll repeat that one more time, legs nice and straight and all the way back. To advance the leg lift and make this a little bit more difficult for the gymnast, we're going to take them from laying on the floor now up onto a bar. Now we're going to get them to do their leg lifts, but we're also going to introduce a hold as they're going to be holding their half lever and their Russian lever in a static position. So TJ is going to do 2 tuck leg lifts for me. He's going to hold his tuck leg lift. Then he's going to show me 2 straight leg lifts and he's going to hold his leg lift at the top as well. So we can get the gymnast to do tuck leg lifts, 1 and 2. Hold it for 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, then lower our legs straight. It's going to do 2 straight leg lifts, 1, back down, 2, back down. We can ask them to hold it in a half lever position, 1, 2, 3, or in a Russian position with their toes at the bar if they're a little bit more advanced, 2, 3, and relax. So to continue moving things on, we can use the same variations, but we're now going to go into upper arms with the gymnast to make it a little bit harder. So we're going to ask TJ to go in upper arms. He's going to put something nice and soft here for his arms to go onto. He's going to bring his knees up and hold his tucked leg lift and come back down. And he's also going to lift his legs up straight and hold it nice and straight and come back down to the bottom. Now, depending on how strong the gymnasts are will depend on how many times you ask them to do this. I'd recommend to do a mixture of lifts and holds. So before we take the gymnasts onto the floor and do the full half lever and Russian, we can get them onto a set of P-bars or raised parallettes to make this a little bit easier for them. So what we're going to ask the gymnast to do first is come onto the bars and jump up into support, just holding that nice support shape, making sure they're nice and strong and they're not going to collapse. They're then going to put their legs on the bars in front of them just to relax themselves and get ready to do the first exercise. So the first thing that we're going to do is ask them to do a tuck lever. So they're going to bring their knees in, holding that tuck lever, 3 seconds and straddle back to the bars and relax. Once the gymnast can do a tuck lever easily, we can then ask them to straighten one leg out to make it a little bit more difficult and swap to the other leg and then straddle onto the bars. From here, we can then ask the gymnast to bring both of their legs in to do their half lever. 1, 2, 3, relax. Once they can do their half lever with their legs together, we're then going to get the gymnast to try and do a straddled Russian. So they're going to bring their legs up in that straddle shape, trying to hold, then relax and come back down. Once we've managed to do a straddled Russian, we're then going to get the gymnast to bring their legs together, lift up into a proper Russian lever, and then straddle onto the bars. Now the whole time, if you've got the gymnast up on the P-bars and it's the first time they've ever done these skills, you can stand next to them and support them like I did with TJ at the end. If not, you can get a set of parallettes, bring them down nice and low and keep it nice and safe the whole time. So before we get the gymnast to try the full half lever or Russian in support, it's a good idea to bring them back down onto the floor to test their hip flexor strength and get them to understand pressing down on their hands and lifting their bottom off the floor. So TJ is going to show us how he can lift his front half for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Then he's going to press down next to his hips and lift his bottom off the floor. 2, 3. He's going to do it one more time. So we're going to ask the gymnast to keep rocking backwards and forwards from these positions. And the second one, lifting his bottom up. 2, 3. A common mistake when teaching half levers and Russians is that a lot of coaches will forget that there's a lot of stress and a lot of demand on the gymnast tricep to press the floor or the bars back behind them. So an easy exercise to get the gymnast to understand to press back behind them is to have them lay down on their stomach like this with their arms nice and straight. We can ask the gymnast to lift their arms off the floor behind them, keeping their elbows completely straight and then relaxing and coming back down. As you can see, this engages the gymnast's triceps and makes them lift with straight arms behind them. One more time, squeeze in that position and relax. From there, we can ask the gymnast to sit up into pike, and we can really start to test the gymnast's straight arm strength, pushing behind them so they're keeping their arms nice and straight and pushing their bottom forwards and upwards. So hands go down on the floor, arms straight, pressing the floor back behind him and sitting down into a pike shape. Relax there. Now, if we get the gymnast to understand this and how to press back, we'll be able to get that nice half lever and Russian lever that we really want them to show us. So finally, bringing a half lever and a Russian lever down onto the floor, there's a few things we're going to remind the gymnast of first before we get them to perform the skill itself. So we're going to remind the gymnast to think about lifting their feet up, using their abs and their hip flexors. We're going to remind the gymnast to push down on the floor, lifting their bottom off the floor. We're going to remind the gymnast to use their triceps and keep their arms straight by pushing their hips forwards. Once we've completed and gone through these 3 things, reminded the gymnast of what to do, we can ask them to perform their half lever. 1, 2, 3, relax. Once the gymnast has done their half lever, we can ask them to try their straddled Russian. So bring their legs up, 1, 2, 3. And we'll have one last go, TJ. See if we can do straddled Russian into full Russian and hold. So a few important things to remember when teaching half levers and Russians. Make sure the gymnast understands how to engage their abs and their hip flexors to lift their feet up. Make sure they understand how to press down on the floor and lift their bottom up from support. And also, it's extremely important to remind them about pressing backwards on the floor with their triceps, especially when they start to move on to Russian levers.